Our goal in this tutorial with Greenfoot is to be able to create a background and add some actors or characters, if you like, to it. We're not going to program any kind of interaction yet. I just want to show you the basic constructs and how it works. Now, some of the stuff that we're going to be doing is fairly high-level object-oriented programming, and I'm going to be hiding that from you, and some of the things I may not be answering directly. In time, I'll bring it up as it's needed, and we'll talk about what those features are. So for now, just sort of follow along with the way this framework is going, and in the hopes that you'll be able to reproduce your own world and your own actors after watching this video. So the first thing we need to do is create a new scenario. And I'm going to call this one the sea. And it's important that you see where your scenarios are saved on the computer. So for example, here's the path to where I'm going. Because we're going to want to keep the assets for this program all together so that that way when we're building things, it's all, it's all together, right? And when our folders or files won't go missing because they're all contained within the project. So the first thing I'll show you is how you could build a character. Now, because I'm going to be building a sea, let's see what's built into Greenfoot. The way you add new things to it is you add what's called a subclass. So in here, let's put a fish into the world. This is all the stuff that you can look through, and start using automatically. So, things that are already available to you in the Greenfoot framework. So I want an animal, and there are actually fish in here. So I'm going to grab this fish, and now I've created this actor that has a fish in it. And these gray lines are there on purpose to remind you that you haven't compiled your code yet. So for them to disappear, you can compile it like this, or if you want to see the Java code, you can open the editor and you can compile it here. Now the actor is there by itself, but there's nowhere for the actor to go. So I'm going to show you a bit of customization here, and this customization would work exactly the same for an actor as I'm doing for the world. So again, we'll start with a new subclass. But now, instead of using one of the built-ins, I'm going to use a scenario that I've saved from my project. So let's cancel for a second, and we'll go find one. So I've brought this one up on YouTube ahead of time, and I'm going to go, sorry, not YouTube, on Google, and I'm going to go and copy it. So I'll save this image, and you want to put it in the assets of your project. So remember I said if you find your scenarios, mine was called the sea, and I guess I'll go, it was in the desktop. Yours may be in a different location, but when you find it, my scenarios are here. It was the sea, and I'm going to keep it in the images so it all stays together. So I'll call this sea with sand, just to be descriptive about what my background is. And one thing you might not have noticed when we did this was the size of the image. So I'm going to back up just so you can see it here, 900 by 500 pixels. It's also here 900 by 500. That's going to be important when we make our characters because you want to know how big they are when they fit in the world. Otherwise, you'd have to use some imaging editing software to shrink it or make it bigger. So all we've done is save that image, and we put it in the asset folder of our project. So now when I create a subclass, I'm going to go and find it right there. So that's the sea with sand that I just saved. So let's call it, this is my ocean class. So it's grayed out, and I need to compile it, but there it is. So again, you notice that stuff's missing. The sand isn't in there, it's just the blue. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and look at the code and tell you what's happening. This created a world with 600 by 400 cells, and each cell is a 1 by 1 pixel. So really, my image was 900 by 500, and that's why things have been hidden from us. So if I change it, now I have 900 by 500, and each one is 1 pixel, so I have a 900 by 500 pixel world. So now if I compile my project, there's the world. I can see everything the way I intended it originally. So now I can actually add my actors in too because I have a world to put them in. I can say new fish. And I can do some of this Java coding visually like that by using the mouse click to see what's there. So one thing I'd like you to understand about what we just did here is when we created the ocean, there were some properties there. Now, the cells are the way the world works. You have to picture this as a grid. Right now the grid is at a pixel level, 1 by 1. If we change this, let's just say we did it as let's pick an easy number to work with, like 10. If I did it as 10 by 10 pixels, then I would have 900 cells, each of them being 10 pixels wide. That's 9,000 pixels wide. That's a massive image, and it'd be 5,000 pixels high. So it would likely crash the computer, or at least the program would probably complain about running out of memory. So I scaled it down. What I've done now is 90 cells at 10 pixels per cell is 900. 50 at 10 pixels per cell is 500. So I've scaled the image to be 90 by 50 using 10 pixel cell grids. And I'll show you exactly what that does. The problem is going to be that I don't have any action for you to see how that's going to affect things. So in the actor class, I'm going to add, I'm not going to go into a lot of interaction, but I just want to show you the way that that world works when we created it. So if you do want to find out, you can open the documentation through these links just by right-clicking on them. So if I click Open Documentation, it's going to pull up the Java documentation, where you'll find all the methods that these built-in classes can do for you. So the one I'm looking for is called Move, and it moves in the direction it's currently facing, which is nice, because if the actor's facing right, it's going to move to the right. And it tells me the distance, and this is where the cells come into play. The distance is the number of cells that I want it to move. So to show you then how I could do this, I'm going to go into the code for the actor, and the one method that's here is called act. And I'm going to say move one cell. So I'll recompile that class, and I'll put one of these fish in the world. And now if I ask it to act, I can see it moving, and it's actually moving by exactly 10 pixels each time it goes. If I wanted to show you how that affects things in the world, I open this editor. If I make it 100 pixels now, again I need to scale it so that it's not going to overpower the memory in the computer. It's now 9 by 5. I'll put a fish in the world this time and watch what happens when it acts. It's jumping 100 pixels at a time because that's how big the grid is. So if you want to work on your games at a pixel level, then you would make your grid 1 pixel by 1 pixel. But there's sometimes when it's convenient using a grid, and that's the way this works when you set it up. So coming up next is going to be some more interaction, but at this point, hopefully you understand how to build a custom world and add your own characters and actors to change your images for those actors and characters, and the way the grid is set up so that once we start programming the interaction, we know how these things are going to move throughout the world.